What's going on, Sunbelt fans? I am your host, Dominic Rossetto. Welcome into the Sunbelt Syndicate. Thanks much to Teksho for the music for this podcast. Today we jump into Georgia State Panthers. Over the last 3 seasons, they've had a record of 7-6 in 2019, 6-4 in 2020, and 8-5 in 2021. In that time frame, they've had 1 Power 5 victory. They have 1 win over a ranked opponent who happened to be conference foe Coastal Carolina. And they've also come away with a 2-1 bowl record overall. I think this year the offense can thrive if Darren Granger can continue to evolve in this offense. We saw him take over last year after Cornelius Brown, I guess, just couldn't get it done, quite frankly. And he did very well. He's a dual-threat quarterback, and if he continues to evolve and get his game even more improved, then I think this offense can really strike a match and really light themselves on fire here in a good way. I think the offense struggles if pretty much the opposite happens. If Granger struggles, he has to get off to a little bit better of a start. A little bit slow starting out last year, which is to be expected. He was coming in from FCS Furman, so he was stepping up in what he was seeing out of opponents and defenses, so he was trying to get a read on that. I think by the end of the season, he was vastly improved. If that doesn't hold true and he doesn't improve, then I think the offense does struggle. And if they have to go back to, going through 2 quarterbacks, that's never good for anybody. I think the defense thrives if the D-line can replace 3 starters. The linebackers are a strength. I do think the linebackers are a strength of this team, but their D-line needs to be able to replace those starters to have success this season. I think they struggle if they can't slow the opponent's running game down. They had some games where they really got gashed by the run. If they can clean that up, they can be a little more successful, especially on that defensive points per game aspect this year. But they did improve towards the end of last season, so it'll be interesting to see if they can slow up those run games and keep that going. Special teams, this unit has only finished higher than 100 once in the last 3 seasons. I see a big jump here, but I think some of the reason behind that is Coach Sean Elliott doesn't really care about the return game. I guess, he's been quoted as saying stuff along the lines of, he'd rather avoid the penalties that come with returns and I guess other things. To me, that has to change if they want to be more successful, if they want to have the season that I think they can. They're going to have to start at least attempting to do more of those returns, both punt and kick-wise. But we'll see if he changes his philosophy on that or if he ends up looking like the genius and he keeps it the way it is and they still do well. So let's jump right into the season here. They open up at South Carolina. I'd love to see them win this one, but I got to be honest, being down there in South Carolina, App State had the lead when they played them a couple years ago, but almost blew it towards the end. So it's going to be interesting to see how that early season heat down there in South Carolina, although, they're from Georgia, they should be able to be prepared for that, but I just think they're not going to win that one. Same with the following week, North Carolina, not because they couldn't beat North Carolina. I think they can beat both of these teams, absolutely think they can, and we'll be pulling for them against both. How great would it be to have App State and Georgia State both beat North Carolina and tell an ACC school you can't even win the Sun Belt? I think that'd be a great talking point and thing to point out. But I do have them losing the first 2 games. But Georgia State fans, don't get too mad at me yet because I have them going on a roll after this. I think you learn more in a loss than you do in a win most of the time. And I think those 2 victories, or I should say those 2 losses, I think they'll learn a lot in those games. I don't see them getting blown out neither. Could happen. I just don't see it happening. I do think they rebound really well against Charlotte. They're much more powerful and consistent than Charlotte has been the last several seasons. So I think they win there. Then they go down. They host Coastal Carolina for a Thursday night matchup. And I think this one's going to be a big one. And Coastal's going to want some revenge from the season before, but I think this is Georgia State's year. I think this is where they really start showing their power and coming on strong. So I have them coming away with a victory in that one. Then they travel up to Army. And not going to be an easy one. Especially if Army can get the lead, control that clock with their run game, but I don't see that happening. I think Georgia State's defense will be good enough to hold them at bay, and I think their offense will be able to score enough points fast enough to outpace the Army team, and they should come away with a victory on that one. Then they host their rival from down south, Georgia Southern, and these two teams, once again, don't like each other. I've seen that theme a lot here in the East, which is exciting and good for college football and especially for the Sun Belt. I just think they're more powerful than Southern, and Southern could figure it out by the end of the year, but this is midpoint. I don't think they figured it out just yet, or they're not hitting on all cylinders just yet anyway. I see Georgia State coming away with a victory there. Then a huge matchup. They do have a bye week before this, but they travel to Appalachian State on Wednesday night for a midweek game. To me, Georgia State, even if they've gone on this run and had all these good things happen after this struggle in the first 2 weeks, I don't see them beating a team like App State on the road. They've never beaten them ever before. With a weekday game, App State has a lot of experience there. I don't think Georgia State has as much. They might not be ready and up for it as much. I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout of any sort. I actually think it'd be a really good game to be at. If anyone has the availability to be in the mountains of North Carolina on October 19th, I would highly suggest it. But I think App State's a little too strong this year and still beats them, so I have an L for that one. But again, lights another fire under Georgia State because they know they're a good team. So I have them rebounding nicely for their homecoming against Old Dominion the following week. Put that as a W. Old Dominion's a little weaker. I think Georgia State's a much more powerful team at this point in time. Then they go down to Southern Miss, and again, two newcomers who haven't had great seasons. In fact, there's really a run of three of them because after Southern Miss, they play ULM. I just don't think any of those teams are on par with the Georgia State. Maybe Georgia State's not head and shoulders above better, but I do think they're better than all three of those teams. I have 3 straight W's in a row there for Georgia State. Then they might have some tests here at the end at James Madison, so it's on the road. James Madison may have it figured out by then, or maybe they've closed up shop because they've been beaten more than they thought they would and they've been down and out. Either way, I actually have them beating James Madison and then following that up with a very surprising victory over Marshall, especially coming off 2 straight road trips. The Marshall game will be their second one in a row, but at that point, Georgia State doesn't want to lose again, right? They've only lost 1 conference game. They're going to do everything they can and hope App State trips up so that they have a shot at the Sun Belt East title. I don't know. Maybe it'll happen for them, but either way, I've got them winning that one. And after that, you come away with a regular season record for Georgia State at 9-3 overall. So maybe Georgia State is going to surprise some people. I have them surprising people, and I hope they surprise more. I hope they have a better record than that. I'd love to see them beat North and South Carolina there and show the strength that this conference has as a whole. As always, like, comment, subscribe, join the podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Syndicate.